Hello, it's Sonia here with The Pretty Stitch. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time joining me, I'm so happy to have you here. So today is Tuesday, and that means it's Tunisian Tuesday, where we either feature a Tunisian stitch pattern or project. And today we're going to be doing a project. So we're going to be making an ear warmer, and the yarn I'm using is right here. It's Encore, it's Plymouth from Plymouth, Encore Color Spun, and it has acrylic and wool, so mostly acrylic, and I think it's going to be really nice for this project. It doesn't feel too itchy or anything, and hopefully you'll be able to see it okay with my light background here. So I already got started here, and as you can see, we were having some issues with the center pull, so we have a little yarn barf situation, but you know, we're working through it. Okay. So I am using, I've already gotten started here, my J hook or 6mm hook. And to start this project, you're going to need to chain 18. So I chained 18, and then you'll need to pull up loops for row 1, working in the back bump. And I'll show a quick clip so you can see how I do that. Okay, so row 1 is our setup row in the second chain from our hook. I like to work in the back bump of my chain. I am going to pull up loops. Now you don't have to work in the back bump, that's just my preferred method. And if you've never done Tunisian crochet before, I do have a playlist that goes over the basics plus other stitch pattern tutorials and projects as well. So I'll place that link in the description box if you want to check that out. So Tunisian crochet is always worked in 2 parts. Each row is worked in 2 parts. So we are doing row 1. So the first part of row 1, called the forward pass, we are putting our stitches on our hook. And then the second part of row 1 will be called the return pass, where we will take the stitches off our hook, and each part equals 1 row. And then you'll need to work those loops off, and we're going to work them off by yarning over, pulling through 1, yarning over, pulling through 2 for the rest of the row. Alright, so here we go. Here is row 1, all complete. So row 2 is the start of the pattern. So what we're going to do is our first stitch here, we're going to work Tunisian purl. And then our next stitch, we are going to work a Tunisian simple decrease stitch. So that means we're going to insert our hook in those first 2 vertical bars. And if you're not familiar with these stitches, I do have a playlist that goes over the basics to help you get started. I'll place a link in the description box for that. So this project is for somebody that has the basics down, that you know how to do Tunisian simple, Tunisian purl, Tunisian knit stitch, you know how to work back and forth in rows. Alright, so we are going to pull up our loop. What is going on here? Alright, let's try that again. Tunisian simple, pull up a loop. There we go. I don't know what was going on there. Alright, so now we need to put the stitch back on our hook. So we're going to yarn over purlwise, and I do have a video that goes over that more in detail because our next stitch is going to be purl, so we need to have the yarn set up for that. So our yarn is in front, and we wrap it around, back to the front again, and we're ready to go to work the purl stitch. And we're going to repeat across. So Tunisian simple, decrease are together, so insert in those next 2 vertical bars, pull up a loop. Alright, I'm having a time. We're going to pull up a loop, yarn over purlwise, work a purl stitch, and just repeat across. Tunisian simple, decrease, yarn over purlwise, and work a purl stitch in the next. So at the end of this row, you're still going to have 18 loops, and you always will for the duration of the project. You always will have the same amount of loops on your hook, 18. So we have 2 stitches left, so we're working that purl stitch and then working in that stitch. It looks like a chain, so just inserting your hooks in the center of that, pulling up a loop, and we have our 18 loops, and then we need to work these off. So yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2 for the rest of the row. Okay, so there we go. There is row 2. So let's begin row 3. So our first 2 stitches are going to be Tunisian purl. So that first vertical bar, working a purl stitch, and then that next vertical bar, also working a purl stitch. So this is row 3. And now we're going to repeat again, working Tunisian simple, so in that next vertical bar. So sometimes the next one, when you're working a purl stitch, it can kind of pull it, so it's really easy to miss it. So you just want to be mindful of that. So let me grab a double point here. So here is this one we just worked here. We worked that purl stitch. There's the one, it's kind of sagging down, so you want to make sure that you don't miss that stitch there. So we're working Tunisian simple decrease. So you're going to insert your hook in this loop and then that next loop. And yarn over, pull up a loop, and now we yarn over purlwise and work a purl stitch in the next. So Tunisian simple in the next 2. Pull up our loop, yarn over purlwise, and then Tunisian purl. Tunisian simple in the next 2. So we're doing that decrease. Tunisian purl. So we're continuing in pattern like we did for row 2, except we worked an extra purl stitch in the beginning. And you can see how that loop is really sagging down low, so right here. So you just pull it up. Okay, so now we have 3 stitches left. So we're going to work Tunisian simpler together. And instead of yarning over purlwise, we're going to do a regular yarn over, because if we're doing yarn over purlwise, then that means we have to do a purl stitch on the end, and we don't want to do that. So we're just doing a regular yarn over to put that last stitch on, or second to last stitch on. Then we work in that stitch that looks like a chain and pull up a loop. So again, we have 18 loops on our hook. So when you do those regular yarn overs, you'll see that they really like to hide in your work. So if you're really struggling, you might want to use a stitch marker, just like a scrap piece of yarn or something like that, to mark that stitch. All right, so we're going to work our stitches off. So yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2 for the rest of the row. So you can see right there, there's that yarn over, but it kind of gets lost in the work. So it's right here. So you might, as I said before, just want to pop a little, like a scrap piece of yarn, just slide her through, just so that you can find that stitch. Once you get going on this, then you'll, be able to spot it. But maybe if you're not familiar, it might be a little tricky at first. All right, so there we go. There is row 3. So row 4, we're going to be working Tunisian purl in the first 3 stitches. So you're going to start to see that we're always going to be adding an extra purl stitch when we're starting our row until we get almost to the end here. All right, so let's work 3 Tunisian purl stitches for row 4 here. And then we continue in pattern. So Tunisian simple decrease, yarn over purlwise, work a purl stitch. Okay, so now we are almost at the end of our row. So we just worked a purl stitch. We can't work the simple stitch. We have 2 stitches left. So we have that yarn over right here. So it is really hiding out, but here it is. There she is right there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to work a purl stitch in that yarn over. And then we work in that stitch that looks like a chain to complete row 4, and then we work these stitches off like normal. Okay, so let's begin row 5. So we are going to be working 4 Tunisian purl stitches. So we're adding an extra one. So we worked 3, now we work 4. And then we just continue in pattern with our Tunisian simple decrease, yarn over purlwise, and then purling in the next stitch. And now this row works out perfectly where we can work Tunisian purl in our second to last stitch and work in that stitch that looks like a chain, and then we work off our stitches like we usually do. Okay, so here I started row 6. I added an extra purl stitch, so now we have 5. I worked to the end. I don't have a purl stitch, so now we have to do a regular yarn over, and then we work in that stitch that looks like a chain, pulling up a loop, and now we work these stitches off like we normally do. And then I'm going to work row 7, so then we're going to be working 6 purl stitches, and then I'll meet you at the end of the forward pass to see how we're going to finish up row 7. Okay, so I'm at the end of row 7 where I've worked until I can't work anymore in pattern, so I worked a purl stitch. We have 2 stitches left, so we have that yarn over right here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to work a Tunisian purl in that yarn over, and then we just work in that stitch that looks like a chain, and we do our return pass, yarning over pulling through 1, yarning over pulling through 2. So I'm going to work row 8, and we'll see where we land at the end of that row. So I'll meet you back at the end of the forward pass of row 8. So I'll be adding another purl stitch. So you kind of can start to see the pattern, how we're creating a slant. So all these are purls, all of this is the design. So we just work 1 purl over, so it's creating that slant. Okay, so we're at the end of row 8 for the forward pass. So we had to work 7 purl stitches to start, and then this works out perfectly where our second to last stitch is our purl, so we're able to just continue in pattern, and then we work in that stitch that looks like a chain and work these off. So I'm going to do row 9. So again, we're going to be adding a purl stitch, and I'll meet you back. Okay, so here we go. Row 9, we worked 8 purl stitches, worked in pattern. I'm at the end of the row, so now I do a regular yarn over to complete, and then we work our return pass after we work in that last stitch that looks like a chain. So again, we'll work row 10 where we do 9 purl stitches. So it's pretty easy to remember because it's 1 less than the row number. So we're finishing up row 9, so we worked 8 purl stitches, so the next row is row 10 where we're going to do 9 purl stitches, and 11 we're going to do 10 purl stitches. So that's a kind of a little easy way to remember how many you need to do. So now you're really starting to see the pattern emerge there. Alright, so I'll keep going here. Okay, so row 10, to finish up this row, we need to work a purl stitch in that last yarn over there, and then we will work our return pass. So we'll work row 11. So again, we'll have 10 purl stitches. So I will meet you back at the end of the forward pass of row 11. Okay, so this is row 11. We were able to work perfectly in pattern. So we've worked our 10 purl stitches and we worked in our pattern. And now we'll work these off. And then we will work row 12. So we'll do 11 purl stitches for row 12 to start with. And then you will work in pattern. Okay, so we're at row 12. So to finish up this row, we have to do a regular yarn over, and then we work in that chain, and then we work our return pass. So row 13, we are going to be working 12 purl stitches, and then we'll continue in our pattern with our decrease in purl stitches and our yarn over purlwise. Okay, so I'm at 13, so I have 2 stitches left. So we need to work a purl stitch in that yarn over that likes to hide, and then we work in that stitch that looks like a chain, and we work our return pass. So then row 14, we will continue in pattern. So you're going to work 13 purl stitches and then continue in pattern. Okay, so row 14, we were able to work perfectly in pattern, and we work the return pass. So then we're going to work row 15. So we're going to do 14 purl stitches, and then we won't have very many stitches to work in pattern. So I'm going to go do that, and I will meet you back. Okay, so this is the end of row 15. We need to do a yarn over, the regular yarn over, and then we work in that stitch and work a regular return pass, and then we're going to get ready for row 16. So rows 2 through 15 are the first part of this stitch pattern, and it will start to make sense, and I'm really trying to walk you through this, so some of it might seem a little redundant, but just want you to be successful with this project. Okay, so we've worked the first part, so now we're going to work row 16. So what we're going to start to do is we're going to be working one less purl stitch. So we started doing and adding one, now we're going to be taking away one. So row 15, we did 14 purl stitches. So row 16, we're going to do 13 purl stitches. So I'm going to work 13 purl stitches. So I have 13 purl stitches but 14 loops on my hook. So now we're going to go back and work in pattern. So we're going to work Tunisian simple decrease in the next 2. Now we're yarning over purlwise, and we're going to work in that yarn over there. So we're going to work a purl stitch, and then we work in that stitch that looks like a chain. So we should have our 18 loops on our hook still, and we're now going to work these off like we normally do. So I've already started row 17, so we have 12 purl stitches on our hook here. Now we're going to continue in pattern, so working that Tunisian simple, yarn over purlwise, and then we work Tunisian purl. And now we have 2 stitches left, so we're going to work Tunisian purl again, and then we work in that stitch that looks like a chain. Made that one a little tight. It happens. Here we go. Pulling up our loop, and then we yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. So row 18, we're going to have one less stitch. So we are going to have 11 purl stitches, and then we work in pattern. So I'm going to go do that. Okay, so here is row 18. So we worked 11 purl stitches here, and we continued in pattern. So I did Tunisian simple, yarn over purlwise, purl, and I did my Tunisian simple decrease here. And now I'm going to do a regular yarn over because we are at our last stitch that looks like a chain, and now we work these off. So then row 19, we're going to be working 10 purl stitches, but have 11 stitches on our hook, and then work in our pattern with our decrease and purl stitches and yarn over purlwise. So you'll be able to see, so it's going like this, and now we're going in the opposite direction. Okay, so row 19, I'm continuing in pattern. So I just did my yarn over purlwise. I'm going to work a purl stitch in that yarn over, that one that likes to hide, to complete the row. And then work in that stitch that looks like a chain, and then we work these off. So then row 20, we're going to do one less. We're going to work 9 purl stitches, and then we continue in pattern. Okay, so here we are at row 20. We worked 9 purl stitches. We worked in our pattern. So now we're at the end of our row, and I worked my purl stitch. I have 2 stitches left, so I need to work a purl stitch in that second to last stitch because we can't do a decrease, and then we work in that stitch that looks like a chain, and we work our return pass. And then row 21, we are going to work 8 purl stitches and then continue in pattern and see where we end up at the end of the row. So here we are at row 21. We've worked our 8 purl stitches, we've worked in pattern, so we're at the end of the row. So I worked until I can work no more. I did my decrease there. So now we do a regular yarn over and work in that stitch that looks like a chain and work these guys off. And then row 22, we're going to work 7 purl stitches and then work in our pattern. Alright, so here's row 22 where we were able to work in pattern completely. We worked 7 purl stitches, and then we worked in pattern, and then we worked these off. So row 23, we're going to work 6 purl stitches and then work in pattern. Alright, so row 23 here, so I've worked 6 purl stitches, worked in pattern, and now I have a purl stitch left and then my stitch that looks like a chain. So I've worked my last purl stitch, and now I'm going to work another one because I cannot do a decrease. And then we work in that stitch that looks like a chain, and we work these off like normal. So row 24, we're going to work 5 purl stitches and work in pattern and see how it looks at the end of the row. So it's always a little bit different at the end of the row. Alright, so row 24, I worked my 5 purl stitches here. I've worked in pattern, so I have this decrease, and now we just do that regular yarn over because we cannot do yarn over purlwise, and work in that stitch that looks like a chain and work these off. So row 25, we're going to work purl stitches, 4 purl stitches, and then we will work in pattern here. Alright, so row 25, we were just able to work completely in pattern, so we worked our 4 purl stitches, then we worked the pattern there. So row 25, we're going to work, or 26, we're going to work 3 purl stitches and then work in pattern. Alright, so row 26, I've worked in pattern until I can't anymore, and I have a purl stitch remaining, and then my stitch that looks like a chain, so we just work a purl on top of that purl, and then we work in that stitch that looks like a chain, and we work these off. So row 27, we're going to be working 2 purl stitches. Okay, so this is row 27. I've worked in pattern until I can't anymore. So now I do that final yarn over because I did a decrease, so we need to add that stitch back on and work in that stitch that looks like a chain, and then we work these off. Alright, so here we go so far. So we've worked one whole repeat. So what you're going to do, we're going to repeat rows 2 through 27, and then I will meet you back because I'm not sure how many rows we're going to need to work of this guy. Okay, so here is my ear warmer so far. So I said to repeat rows 2 through 27 one more time, but I actually repeated it 2 more times. So we've done it 3 times. So here's where we started. So you can see, so this from here to here is 2 through 27. And then we went up. So 2 through 27 again. So here is it the second time, and then the third time. So then my last row, I just repeated row 2. So I have 80 rows, and I think that's long enough. Now with this pattern, if you find that it's too big or too small, you can easily adjust the size by going up or down a hook size. So, and it does have a little bit of stretch to it as well. So I think it should fit most head sizes. Alright, so let's finish this guy off. So now we're going to do our bind off row. We're just going to work, so I'm just going to bind off in simple stitch all the way across. So you just want to make sure you don't have your stitches too tight or too loose. Okay, that last stitch that looks like a chain. Alright, so there we go. We've bound off. Now, we need to turn this into an ear warmer. So what you could do is you could just sew it across like this, but I do want to have, I think that little twist will look pretty in the front with this particular stitch pattern. I mean, you certainly could just sew it across and, you know, you'll have it like that. It's fine, but I like the little twist. I think it just adds a little something. It's just a preference. So to do that, I like to stitch it across versus sewing. I just don't like to sew. So I am going to turn it so the right side is facing me here. Then we're going to fold it. So we're going to have our right sides touching. So you take your ends and you fold them like this. So I have folded the ends, so now we need to tuck them into each other. So you have your ends folded and you just tuck them in so they're overlapping, and you're going to have 4 sections, and you want to make sure that the one section with your loop is on an end, either this end here or this end. So everything is overlapped. So I'm going to switch her around here because we're going to be working. So what we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch all the way across all 4 sections. So to start with, I want to chain 1. So we're going to work through all of these 4 sections. So in our first stitch, we're just going to insert our hook. So there's 1. So you go in the next one, you just kind of eyeball it there. 2. So then this is 3. So 3, you want to make sure you get on the end there. And then 4. And we have all 4 sections, and you just work a giant slip stitch. And we just keep going across. So section 1, sometimes they can slide down, so just pick it up section 2, section 3, section 4, and work that giant slip stitch. Now if you're finding this to be way too fiddly, you can definitely just cut a tail and sew it across. It looks the same. I'm just trying to avoid sewing, so that's why I like to do it like this. Alright, I'm going to go off camera and finish that up. Alright, so here we go. I finished stitching across to the end, so when you get to the end, then you can cut your yarn. And then the magic happens. Let me move this end of the yarn, is when you turn it the right side out, you see that pretty twist. So I really like how this turned out. I think it's really nice. Now again, if you don't like the twist, you can just sew it or stitch it straight across. Here is the other side, and I really love this yarn. It's perfect for an ear warmer. I might keep this one for myself actually. I was thinking of donating it because I always donate at Christmas time for a hat mitten tree, which they then distribute the items to like a local homeless shelter. But I think I might keep this one. I love this color. I love this like natural, like ecru looking white. So of course, to finish, you'll need to weave in your ends, and then you might want to give it a light block, and then you're all set for wearing. And the nice thing with this is it lays flat. It's not curling up at all, which is really nice because we threw in all those purl stitches. So I hope you enjoyed this project, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.